Hey guys, what's up? So, I think it's about time for me to do a review of Alexstrasza, the Lifebinder from Warcraft in Heroes of the Storm. Alex has been around for 2 hero releases now, and what I find really fascinating about her is that she's the only hero that I can think of where I can actually find comfortable uses for all of her talents depending on what kind of match that I predict I will have with each game. There are heroes I like to play that have talents that I simply avoid every game, like Zagara's Baneling Massacre level 7 or Tassadar's Resonation, also level 7. And there are heroes who have abilities that are pretty much universally understood as terrible and should never be taken, such as Oriel's Resurrect or Malthael's Last Rites, which of course might see more usage if the incoming changes are strong enough. However, with Alexstrasza, I am confident in saying that there are no trap talents, nor are there any abilities that are simply useless. All of her kit is viable in some way, not necessarily in every game, but in enough games to be deemed useful. It's rather clear to me that there are 3 distinct builds for Alex, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. They are as aptly named the Q build, the W build, and the E build. So let's just dive into each one and look at how they function and when to take them. The first one I want to talk about is the E build. This build is, for whatever reason, a build that I constantly see when I play against Alexes who are solo healers. First and foremost, this build is not a good build to go for if you are the only healer on your team, and this is an observation that I have made playing against E-build solo healer Alexes and as an E-build solo healer Alex. The strengths of this build are that it can provide a great amount of self-sustain, is a great build for late game damage, and is of course a very fun and entertaining build to use as the Dragon Queen transformation provides Alex with a lot of utility and quite a lot of healing than her regular human form, so being able to call on that dragon side more often is of course a great increase in your overall power. However, the main and often critical weakness of the E-build, specifically as the only healer in the team, is that your overall healing output is greatly reduced before level 20 because your regular form healing abilities remain at basic strength as you try to rely too heavily on your Dragon Queen healing. The E-build almost always looks like this: Flames of Fury, the E quest, Heat Exhaustion, Fire Within, Cleansing Flame, Pacify, Draconic Discipline, and Ancient Flame. The synergy between the E talents at levels 1 through 7 and Ancient Flame at level 20 make her Dragon Queen form very powerful in these late game fights, as you can do a lot of AoE damage and slow the enemy team quite efficiently. Furthermore, at level 20 your Dragonfire also helps you lower the cooldown of your next Dragon Queen transformation, provided you have completed the quest at level 1, which is a very strong interaction to have. Notice the only healing talent in this build is her ultimate, Cleansing Flame. Due to the lack of other healing talents, E-build Alexes would be lucky to make it past 50k healing in a standard 25-minute game. The next build to talk about is the Q build. This build is a great build to take if your allies are primarily squishier heroes like 3 assassins, or if your opponents have quite a lot of AoE damage or Ana. Strengths of this build include high single target sustained healing and easy execution compared to her W build. Weaknesses of this build include less healing output overall compared to her W build unless the W build's quest wasn't completed by the end of the game, practically no AoE healing, and this build relies heavily on Alex's health being at sufficiently high levels, i.e. more than 75%. This particular weakness is critical as it really highlights the weakness of Alex against dive comps. The talents specific to this build are Live and Let Live, Exuberance, Life Blossom, and Tough Love. These talents allow Alex to run around behind her tanks and heal everyone in a manner similar to that of Medic Morales. Her level 1 to 7 talents revolve around Alex having more than 75% health, which is where the critical but not unmaintainable flaw in this build lies. The healing output of this build can be seen in her level 1 and 7 talents because as long as she remains above 75% health, her Gift of Life ability Q will provide free healing from Life Blossom on a 3.5 second cooldown from Live and Let Live. This is very strong. At level 10 she can provide up to 566 healing every 3.5 seconds, which is a great portion of most assassins' health at a very low cooldown. Furthermore, this is targeted healing, so you don't have to worry about your allies dodging your healing, which makes healing high mobility heroes like Tracer and Genji a lot easier. Her level 16 talent Tough Love is just the icing on an already very strong build, as it basically means you can provide 20 armor for 2 seconds every 3.5 seconds. That is very strong for divers like Genji, Illidan, and Butcher. Due to you having to rely on maintaining high health for a high healing output, you will need your allies to peel away any divers from you. With the Q build, you should be reaching around 60k to 80k healing in a standard 25-minute game. However, there have been some occasions where I have seen myself have a higher healing stat somehow. This may have something to do with the ultimate that I take. Just a quick note about Dragon Form, your healing becomes a free target heal on a 3-second cooldown that heals more because you have more health. The final build, and the one that I use the most, simply because I can rely on my team not to dodge my healing, is the W build. This is the build that I often see extreme late game healing from, as well as equally terrifying high levels of self-healing, but not self-sustained like the E build. The strengths of this build include the aforementioned high levels of overall healing, AoE burst healing, AoE shielding, and self-burst healing. In other words, healing on top of more healing. The main and sometimes critical weakness of this build is that abundance, W, with which this build revolves around, can be quite difficult to use. There is a 3-second delay before it heals allies who remain in the telegraph circle, which often results in allies moving forward looking to engage away from the circle, allies moving backwards trying to retreat away from the circle, and heroes like Anna with her grenade just basically shutting down the circle. The talents specific for this build are Circle of Life, W quest, Surge of Vitality, Verdant Flourish, and Overprotective. One thing to note, if you accidentally choose Exuberance over Surge of Vitality level 4, it is not the end of the world. It just means that instead of providing your allies with some additional movement speed per heal, you are now looking to keep your health at a high level so that you can walk faster. In some cases that is actually a better choice, but I personally prefer providing movement speed to my allies and instead just mounting up. Just like the E build, the biggest strength of the W build comes from when you complete her W quest. This quest is pretty insane when you collect 25 globes, which, after the recent globe changes, is rather easy. Once you have collected the globes, Abundance not only heals for 25% instead of 20% of your allies' health, which is a 25% increase in healing, it also spawns a free globe, so in a sense, you can restore a small portion of your allies' mana, which itself is a very valuable trait. But there is also this niche where you can also help some allies complete their globe quests or fuel powerful talents that involve globe collection, such as Leoric's Osane Renewal level 1 or Kel'Thuzad's Phylactery level 4. Verdant Flourish level 7 synergizes with the W quest for self-healing, so that when you have completed the quest, you receive an additional 30% of the 25% of your health in healing, which comes out to a total of 32.5% of your health per cast. Once you reach level 16, there is a major power spike that comes from Overprotective. This talent basically gives you a storm shield every 16 seconds, with the shields of your allies being up to 15% of their health depending on how much they were healed, and up to 19.5% of your health depending on how much you've healed. This talent finds maximum value during team fights if your team is coordinated enough to go to the abundance circle right before the 3-second delay elapses, because assuming they have low enough health, you will have essentially given them 40% of their health back to continue the team fight, and you would have given yourself back 52% of your own health during the team fight. These numbers of course taking into account the shield and the healing. And unlike the Q build, you are not relying on having high health in order to have a high healing output, so whilst your allies should still peel away divers, it is not the end of the world if you are half dead. The final healing numbers for the W build can range wildly depending on your experience in the game. So long as you have completed your quest, you should easily surpass 60k healing and shielding. If your team is rather squishy but still reasonably coordinated, you should be able to surpass 80k healing. If your team involves multiple tanks and is very coordinated, then you can probably find yourself hitting past 100k healing. Of course, all of these estimates are from a standard 25-minute game, as I have sometimes played 30-minute games and found myself doing more than 150k healing. A quick note about Dragon Form, your W has a larger range and heals for 30% health instead of 25%, but without Cleansing Flame, you can only use it once, twice if you choose Draconic Disciple. One thing definitely worth noting is that when choosing between the Q and W healing builds, choosing one does not automatically make the other ability worthless. When using the W build, you can still regularly supplement your healing with your Q, and when using the Q build, you can still occasionally replenish yourself if you accidentally fall under 75% health. In both builds, your E is still quite useful just for the 40% decaying slow that it already provides. Another thing that I have seen some Alexes try to do is mix and match, and just like modding Euphona Prime, it doesn't seem wise to try and have it both ways. And then there are the ultimates, level 13s and the storm talents. Aside from the E build, these talents are quite flexible and each fulfills a certain purpose. Let's start off with the ultimate that you find most Alexes choose, which is Cleansing Flame. Strengths included being a very viable escape option, a reasonably strong healing option, and an unavoidable damage option for killing nearly dead fleeing enemies. Its main weakness compared to Lifebinder is that its burst healing is usually lower, it can't heal Alex, and its damage is rather weak, so you should only use it to finish enemies if you're going to try and actually do any damage with it. The healing of Cleansing Flame is actually quite respectable on squishy assassins, so to that extent it is a more viable option than Lifebinder. Furthermore, the Storm upgrade on Ruby Wings can give you a free Dragon Queen transformation if your team is coordinated enough to have two allies next to each other. When Alex first came out, I thought this particular talent would be a trap talent, but I was wrong, and even in healing builds, this particular talent is quite useful. The weakness of not being able to heal yourself with this ultimate is of course circumvented with the W build. The other ultimate is Lifebinder, and to me, this is also a very powerful ultimate. The main strength of Lifebinder is that it is essentially Rhaegar's original self-casting version of Ancestral Healing with a lower cooldown. Provided you have a lot of health, which for the Q build is a must, you can restore a lot of your allies' health, and this is most prominent when used on allied tanks like Muradin, 100 Soul Diablo, and in particular Cho'Gall. Alternatively, if you find yourself getting dived on and you have an ally who is on full health, you can use Lifebinder on them and heal yourself back to full health. The 60-second cooldown means you can pretty much use it whenever you want and you don't really have to hold back. The Storm upgrade, Ritual of Life, is a peculiar talent. I tend to pick it up if I have a super diver like Illidan, Butcher, Blaze, Chen, Tyrael, etc against a heavy burst comp, someone who could easily lose all their health seconds after getting it all back. I am confident when I say that this talent practically gives your targeted ally immunity for 4 seconds after the first heal, as to this day I have not seen anyone I have used this talent on die between the subsequent heals. Theoretically, there can also be this hilarious cat and mouse effect of you healing your ally then your ally healing you, but so far I have not seen that in action, probably because I am usually in a safe position. With level 13 it is a little trickier. I usually don't go dragon scales unless their team is quite overwhelmingly crowd control based, but to get 30 armor for sometimes more than 2 seconds on a 10-second cooldown makes your survivability against those kinds of teams very strong. Pacify is best taken when their team has an irritating cancerous dive hero like Illidan, Tracer, Genji, Butcher, Valyria, Zeratul, etc, those kinds of terribly annoying heroes. It's a little more difficult to use on a hypercarry like Vala or Hanzo, as the range is rather low, but of course if they happen to be near you, which if your team is coordinated, they really shouldn't, go ahead, pacify them and then watch them cry. Life Unbound is also strong as both a backup targeted heal and occasionally a form of wave clear, best to use on melee heroes or as an emergency heal. Both Pacify and Life Unbound have cooldown reduction passives that come from healing heroes who are hit with hard crowd control, stuns, silences and roots, making these talents super strong counterparts. So if you choose one of them and your allies get hit by, let's say, Bloody Valyria, chuck a cheeky Q at them and reduce your Pacify and Life Unbound cooldowns by a significant portion. And let's not forget the other two Storm talents. I find Ancient Flame to not be enough in any build outside of the E build, as you get so much value out of it since it works with E talents. Blessing of the Red, on the other hand, is a funny talent, and I often have a hard time both justifying and ignoring this talent as it is strong in its own way. I think I take this talent more when my team is rather squishy than when my team involves some tanks. The strength of this talent is that it is essentially Tastar's old version of Color's Embrace before his rework, so this is practically pre-shielding, except of course you can heal it back. And because you are giving your allies 500 more health, if you are using the W build, your healing will go up accordingly. The only weakness of this talent is its cooldown, which I suppose is necessary to keep it balanced, as it will take at least 160 seconds or a little under 3 minutes to give all of your allies 500 health, unless of course you have Cho'Gall, who counts as 1 target, Rexxar, who with Misha counts as 2 targets, or the Lost Vikings, who count as 3 targets. Actually, now that I think about it, if you can get it on all 3 Vikings, that could be really strong, because that is a huge portion of Eric and Balog's health that you have just given as a bonus. In conclusion, Alex is one of the strongest yet balanced healers in the game, with one of the best talent tree designs in the game, one where every talent has its place and every talent is actually useful. However, her playstyle is not necessarily for everyone, as I have heard from many that they would rather play someone like Karazim, Lily, Uther, etc, and that's fair. She can seem rather difficult to master, especially with the abundance delay. but I thoroughly enjoy her, and full disclosure, I have a 53.6% win rate with over 100 games with her, which is more than some of my Grandmaster friends. I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you did, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, why not hit the subscribe button for more Heroes of the Storm action? And if you really liked it, perhaps consider donating to the Patreon? Until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye!